welcome to GlideFast and Faracode on Air. I'm Lauren Jankowski, the Marketing Manager here at GlideFast and Faracode, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. As sister companies, GlideFast Consulting and Faracode both offer cutting-edge technology services. GlideFast is the largest exclusively dedicated consulting firm in the ServiceNow industry, and Faracode provides technology services to federal, state, and local government organizations. Both companies are proud to be Elite ServiceNow Partners. Before we get started, I'd like to share about GlideFast's goal of raising $50,000 for the Joe Andruzzi Foundation. This foundation provides financial assistance to families battling cancer and the unexpected costs that come with treatment. As a cancer survivor himself, GlideFast's very own CEO, Michael Lombardo, has committed to matching up to $25,000, and GlideFast Consulting as a company will also match up to $25,000 for a total donation of $100,000 to help pediatric and adult cancer patients. If you or your company would like to contribute to helping us reach this goal, we will send a link with more information following this webinar. Now, I'm excited to hand things over to our presenter for today, Ashley Snyder, a Senior Technical Consultant at GlideFast Consulting. I'll be monitoring the Q&A throughout today's session, so please send in any questions as they arise, and we'll do our best to answer them. Ashley, you could take it from here.
Thank you, Lauren. Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley Snyder. Like Lauren said, I'm a Senior Technical Consultant here at GlideFast. I've been working on the ServiceNow platform for a little over 5 years now. And my main focuses are IT service management, customer service management, and application development. So today, I'm going to present on how to create apps and experiences with App Engine Studio. I'll focus on two features that were included on the Quebec Release. First, I'll discuss app development methods within ServiceNow and App Engine Studio. Then I'll discuss creating an experience and customizing it in UI Builder. Finally, I'll wrap up with some developer tips when working with AES. So there are three main ways to create an app in ServiceNow. I'm going to start with Studio. So Studio wasn't the first method of creating an application within ServiceNow, but the release did coincide with the rise of scoped applications and delegated development. Studio can be considered more of a high-code experience compared to Guided App Creator and AES, but it's still very much in use and partners well with App Engine Studio, as you can create an app within AES and develop functionality such as business rules and script includes and things like that in Studio later. Next, there is Guided App Creator, and it is the first low-code kind of interface found in Studio. It allows for the streamlined creation of applications and their user interfaces through a guided setup experience, and allows users to easily create tables, restrict apps with roles, and create user interfaces. App Engine Studio is the latest low-code interface used to create apps in ServiceNow. It was launched with the Quebec Release, but specifically Quebec Patch 1. Just like Guided App Creator, it easily allows users to create tables, flows, secure apps, and create experiences. One thing to note is that up until the Quebec Release, you could use Guided App Creator to create workspaces, but now workspaces are created within App Engine Studio, and I'll touch more on that shortly. So just like Guided App Creator provided that streamlined experience in application creation, AES takes it to the next level by putting mostly everything to develop components of an application all in one place. From the AES interface, you can launch an app, add tables and data, create experiences, automate using flows, and secure your application with roles without leaving AES. So let's go ahead and jump into AES and start creating our application. So here I am in my PDI, and what you'll notice is like the first landing page that I see when I log in now is all about App Engine Studio. They've really given you a lot of information to go ahead and research about App Engine Studio and jump in and start creating. But the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is just click this Create App button. And just like I mentioned, there are two different methods now to create apps, and you can see we have two pathways we can take. We can use the low-code, no-code pathway with App Engine Studio, or we can actually go ahead and build it with Studio and start adding code to our application. But for this webinar, we're going to go ahead and use App Engine Studio. Awesome. So this is the App Engine Studio kind of interface or landing page, whatever you want to call it, when we jump into App Engine Studio. And there's a few things I want to kind of like show you guys before we create our first app. So the first thing is if you have an app that you've already created, you can go ahead and start adding things to it, like tables, experiences, and flows. The next section are apps that you've created in App Engine Studio. They'll all show up here. So you guys can see I've kind of been a little busy here getting ready for this webinar. And the next thing I want to point out that's really neat and what I really like is this template section. Templates are things that are released from ServiceNow right now. They're basically like kind of their applications that they've put in. And you can actually create an application from a template and kind of see everything that ServiceNow has done for things like document approval or time off. And what I really like about templates is they've added different like experiences, such as portal experiences or workspace experiences into these templates. And they've changed things like themes around, and you can look at them for things such as data resources and events that I'll touch on later. But they are just a really good reference to look at when you're learning App Engine Studio and experiences. So definitely check those out in your PDI or Sandbox environment. So I'm going to go ahead and create our first app. And this app is just going to be like an IT training request app. I'll go ahead and name the app here and give it a description. And it's going to take it's really a few seconds actually to create the app. It's super fast. And now we're going to go to our app dashboard. Awesome. So here's really the walkthrough of everything we need to create our app. And the first thing that I'm going to do is actually add some tables to the application. So we have some data to work with within our experience. So I'm just going to click this plus symbol right here. And I can upload from a spreadsheet, extend an existing table, or create from scratch. I'm going to go ahead and upload my first table from a spreadsheet because I have some training data that I want to go ahead and put in. And I do want to go ahead and import the data from the spreadsheet. And it takes this is a pretty small table, so it just took a few seconds. And before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and just change some of the field types of the fields that I put in. Awesome. And we'll go ahead and continue. And I'm just going to name this like IT trainings. It's just a list of trainings. It'll go ahead and put a table name in for me. And I'm not going to make it extensible or auto number it for now. All right, this would take just a second to create this table. Awesome. So our table is ready. And I do want to actually make a few changes to it. So I'll just go into Edit Table. And as you can see, it goes ahead and puts a new tab in App Engine Studio for me. I don't get redirected anywhere, which is really nice. And I'm just going to make training name a display field because I do have a reference field I'm going to create later that I want to use it for. So let's go ahead and save that off. Awesome. So I'm done with that table. Let's go ahead and create the second table that we're going to use. And I'm going to extend this table from task because I might want to put some approvals and some other things in there later that task is just going to be really helpful for. Awesome. So we'll go ahead and give this a label of IT training request. And I'll go ahead and auto number the table. So it puts a prefix in there for me. I'm just going to keep everything the same for now, but you do have options to configure this. Awesome. So our table is ready. So I do want to go ahead and add a reference field into this table to reference that training table that I just created. I'm going to click Add New Field, and we'll just name it Training. Put in a reference. And we're going to reference IT trainings table. And save that off. Great. So I've added that field to the table. I do want to configure like the form view because I'm going to throw a few records in. like I said, for our experience. I'm just going to pop into the advanced view of the table here. And this is probably something you guys are more used to seeing when working with tables in ServiceNow. But like I said, it's really nice. It just throws it into a new tab for us, so we don't have to click back and forth between things. And I'm going to go ahead and lay out my form. And I'm going to just do the default view for now for this webinar and just put a few fields in that are kind of more important to me. So first I'll do open by. And then I'll do training. And then I'm going to go ahead and do training cost because I do want to see that as well. Awesome. I'll go ahead and save that off. Great. So we've configured the form of this IT training request table. I'm going to go ahead and just click out of here. I'm done with that kind of configuration. And I want to start putting some records into the table. So I'm going to click preview. And as you can see now, I'm taken to kind of that list view of my table within this new tab. I'm going to go ahead and click create new. And we're going to create a new record. So I'm going to throw 3 different records in to work within our experience. And we'll just call that HTML and save that off. And I'm going to go ahead and close this one just to kind of give us some different record states to work with. And finally, we'll do JavaScript. And this one actually has a cost associated with it when we imported the data from our spreadsheet. So I did want to kind of point out that difference here. All right, so I went ahead and set up the tables that we need for our application and have some test data in there. The next thing to do is create an experience for it. But before we start that, I did want to kind of touch base on experiences within AES. All right, so in App Engine Studio, there are 4 main experience types that can be created. So you have Workspace, Portal, which is different from the Service Portal, Mobile, and Catalog. One thing to note is that an experience can be added to an existing application, or a new application can be created for the experience itself. A good example of this is the CSM configurable workspace application. It's actually been decoupled from the CSM application, but can reference the underlying data in the CSM app. This is just something interesting to think about if you want to send your front end stuff on different releases or different schedules than necessarily the back end, tables and foundational data that you need. So I did want to mention that. For this webinar, I will focus on workspace experiences. To provide some context, there are 2 different workspace types that exist in ServiceNow. The Orlando Paris release launched the agent workspace, and it allowed for the creation of custom workspaces in Guided App Creator. These workspaces are configurable, but they're not very customizable. Agent Workspace is still available in Quebec and may be a good candidate for launching a quick workspace with some configuration options if you're just getting off the ground with workspaces or don't need a lot of customization yet. Quebec released workspace experiences, or what I refer to as configurable workspaces, which allows for more customization and configuration and launches with a basic workspace shell. ServiceNow has released a lot of the out-of-the-box components with Now experiences, and I think one of the big draws to this workspace type is going to be the ability to customize the experience further, as well as adding in dashboards to a workspace landing page. So let's take a look at how to create a workspace experience. All right, so we're back in App Engine Studio here, and I'm going to go ahead and just click this little plus button. And as you can see, now I'm presented with an option of which kind of workspace or kind of experience I'd like to create. And you can add more than one experience type to an app. You're not limited to one. I'm going to go ahead and create a workspace experience. And let's go ahead and just give it some information. We'll go ahead and just copy this. And this is a pretty long URL. I'm just going to shorten it. I don't know who would want to type in that long of a URL, but All right, awesome. And the last thing I'm going to do is just add the S&C internal role to it because it's a training request. So I'd like all internal employees at my company to be able to access it. Great. And the next thing I need to do is add the data that's going to go into the workspace. So it's kind of picked up on the tables that I created. And I actually do want the IT training request table to be my primary table. I could add different tables here if I wanted to, and they'll show up in the list view, as you can see right here. But I'm going to go ahead and just click out of this for now. We're just going to leave it at IT training request. And this will take just a few seconds for it to launch, and we're done. And I'll show you guys before we jump in kind of what that looks like out of the box. So you guys can see as far as, what ServiceNow gives you out of the box when you go through that process. You do get this workspace shell here. You have that header menu, you have the sidebar right here. They do give you a landing page out of the box with a few components and containers configured already. And they do configure a few lists for you as well, based on that, primary and secondary option that you set. So this is what you get with just a few clicks out of the box. So we're going to go into UI Builder next and actually start configuring and customizing our workspace. But before that, I did want to touch base on UI Builder. So like there are two different versions of Workspace in ServiceNow at the moment. There's actually two different versions of UI Builder. So if you're working in an agent workspace, you're going to get a scaled down version of UI Builder that only allows you to add a few components on a landing page. The Now Experience UI Builder is what's used for AES experiences and what we'll be working with. And it contains all of the great customization and component options. This is just something to keep in mind if you hear or read about UI Builder, as there is a difference between the two. So now I'm going to jump into the experience I created with AES in UI Builder and provide a quick tour of the interface and then place some components on that workspace landing page. All right, so we're back here in AES. I'm going to go ahead and just click right here and click Edit. And this actually loads UI Builder right within the AES interface itself, just in a new tab, which is great. I don't have to go anywhere else. I'm still here. And while this is loading, I will tell you what we're going to do is just do a quick walkthrough of UI Builder. This is definitely something to look at the documentation and the training resources, as there is a lot of different things that you can do with UI Builder. And I'll really just be touching on some very high level definitions of some of the things that we're going to be looking at. So the first thing I'll discuss is our page. So a page is anything that's housed within that app shell. So when I say app shell, the sidebar and the header of the workspace. So everything within that is actually going to go in a page. So we have our home page here that ServiceNow gave for us, but they also gave us the list page. So, that list tab thing I showed you, that's actually a page itself, as well as if you were to click into a record. These are all different pages. So just to kind of define what that is and what you can expect when working with UI Builder. And when you're working with pages, you can create different variants or versions of a page. And that's really helpful because let's say that you wanted supervisors to see something different versus agents or fulfillers. You can actually set up a variant of a page. So I could have a whole different homepage or landing page for a supervisor as a variant versus an agent or fulfiller as a variant. I don't have to set up different workspaces for these two different roles now. I can use the same workspace and kind of direct them with some conditions set. So that's just a really helpful thing to have. The next is this content section. So as you can see, we have a few different layers to our page. We have components and we have containers and we have components within containers. So this is just a really helpful thing if you just want to click on something real quick and find it, especially if you have a really layered page here or been working in it in a while. You can just click on something really easily to find that. Looking over here on the sidebar, here's just a list of all your components that ServiceNow provides out of the box. And if you do make custom components, they will show up here as well. Some of my favorites at the moment are the dashboard viewport, and there is a tab set, so you can load different pages within tabs. you can combine the two together and get that really great tabbed dashboard experience that you are used to when working with platform dashboards, and put that in your workspace. So that's a really cool thing to take a look at. The next thing is this data icon. So data resources are how data gets to your components. Components aren't hard-coded with scripts. They're not hard-coded with sysids. You actually bind data to a component using data resources. And that's really what makes your components reusable across the board, because you don't have to change any scripts and do anything to make sure that they're getting data. So this is one of the things that's definitely worth reading the docs about to understand more. And the next is client state. So client state, again, it binds data to components. You can do it on load, on page load, or with events. And then the last thing is client scripts. So client scripts allow for client-side manipulation of data, and they're mainly used in conjunction with like events. So you could use a client script, based upon an event to set your client state parameter, and your component gets that data based on that client state parameter. To just kind of give you guys an idea of how that works. So let's go back to our page. We'll click out of here. The next thing I'll discuss is this configuration panel over here on the right side. So each container and each component are going to have its own configuration options. So right now I'm in a container, and I have different options for this particular container type. I can set a layout on a container and drop different components into different columns. I can set events. If I click into a component itself, now I have different configuration options for that component type. I can set CSS, and I can set events. So like I said, each of these varies depending on what kind of component that it is. So now that we've kind of taken a tour of UI Builder, I'll go ahead and just change a few things around, and then we'll launch our workspace and see how it looks. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of replace some of this out of the box stuff to things that make a little bit more sense. We'll do like all requests up here, or like all requests at a glance. And this is a collapsible container. I'll show you guys what that looks like. There's two different collapsible container types, but this one's pretty neat because you can kind of collapse it up and down. And we'll go ahead and save that off. And let's go ahead and just change this container as well from like my work to just do all requests. Great. So now we have a simple list component, and I'm just going to name this actually open request, and we're going to add another component called like close request in just a moment. And as you can see, it's already filtering to my IT training requests table, but I do just want to change that filter around a little bit for this demo and remove this assigned to as me. All right, and now I can set the columns that show for this. I'm going to go ahead and click out of a few of these that don't make sense. I can rearrange them, which is really nice. I'm going to add a few more that make a little bit more sense. You do have to do these one by one. I kind of wish it was like a slush bucket. It'd make it a little bit faster, but for right now, it's a one by one thing. All right, and I'll just go ahead and kind of rearrange those the way I want. Great. The next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and show the title and save that off. Great. So what I'm going to do now is just add another simple list component underneath that. I could create like a different container for it and do different layout, but just to make it easy, I'm going to go ahead and throw it in the same container. And we're going to name it close request and filter it to our table. And add our filter of active is false. And I'm going to go ahead and add those same columns to it. All right, great. And this one is ready to save off. Actually, I can see these are kind of close together. I could do some different things like containers and layouts and stuff. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and throw some simple CSS in there so you guys can see what it looks like. I'm just going to give it a margin top of like 25 pixels and save that off. Great, so it's going to go ahead and kind of configure that and load up in just a second. So now we can see the new simple list that I just put in. I do want to point out, so ServiceNow went ahead and set up some events for us out of the box. So like when I click on a row in this request widget, it's going to open the record. But when I put the component on the page myself, I don't get that event. So I do have to set that up. That is something to keep in mind when you're working with components, is that more than likely you're going to have to configure the events. So let's go ahead and just configure one. I'm going to do the same thing. When I want to click on a row, I want that record to open. So I'm going to click link to destination, select destination, and we want it to open on the record. And this is where I said kind of looking at what ServiceNow has done is really helpful, because this isn't really anything that I would know off the top of my head as far as setting up the payloads and how to configure that. Perfect. So we're just going to set those two up. And now we've configured our event. Pretty easy. And I'll show you guys that when we do the final run through of our workspace. Last thing I'll do is just change some of these data visualization components. So data visualization, that name kind of came about in Agent Workspace. I just think of it as like a report. It's kind of the same thing to me. But just so you guys know, if you're looking for report widgets in a workspace, it's called data visualization. So it went ahead and it's filtering to my IT and training request table. I do want to go ahead and edit the filters just to kind of show everything, because right now it's assigned to is me. So we're just going to do active is true. And since active is true, I'll name that open request. And I do have like a little presentation tab here. I can actually change the color of this single score report. I forgot to mention. So these are all single score reports. You can go add in and add like pie charts and bar charts. There are different charts that you can add in, just like reports. We're going to go ahead and save that off. And then for the next one, we'll do like close request. We can see that that CSS training that I set to closed is showing up here. And we can just give this a color. We'll give it like blue or something. There's a lot of different colors you can choose from. Great. And then the last one, I'll do like training with the cost. Definitely want to see that in this workspace at a glance. And we'll do greater than and 0. And let's name that training with cost. And we'll give that one like a really like bright red. Or whatever red this is. So we'll just save that off. So we went ahead and configured our different data visualizations. Before I actually show you guys this workspace, the next thing I'm going to do is actually add a theme to the workspace. So like I showed you, it kind of gives you that green kind of layout that ServiceNow provides out of the box. But I'm going to go up here into menu, edit experience settings. And here's where you can do some of the general configuration of a workspace. So I can change the name and the path. Here's my branding and theming. So it launches with the starter workspace theme. I have already configured a theme for this demo that I'm going to put in. You can reuse themes across workspaces and across different scoped applications. So if you have one for your company that you like using, you can use it on different workspaces. The next thing is side navigation. So you can put different links on the sidebar. Let's say that you wanted to link out to like a specific knowledge base or something, you could put that here. And the final thing is utilities. So we have notifications, and you can configure global search for the workspace here. So I'm going to save all my changes, and now we're just going to take a look at our finished product. Great, so you guys can see my theme took effect. I added some different blues. I added like a little icon up here. I changed the font. We have a lot of different things that you can change with the theme really quickly to kind of get that really customized feel to your workspace, you know, align with your branding, and just like look a little bit more professional than what you get out of the box. Walking through our landing page, here's that collapsible container I was talking about. So you can expand it and collapse it if you want. We have our different data visualizations that are here. We have our lists that are here. And if I click into this number right here, it will open up the record for me based on that event that I created. So all of that, you know, this webinar, we're at about 30 minutes now. We've already, to kind of summarize, we've already created an app. We put some tables in our app. We gave the tables data. We created a workspace experience. We've already modified our landing page so it makes a little bit more sense to us. And we gave our workspace a theme, and got to this point in a relatively quick amount of time. So what I want to go ahead and discuss next is just a few developer tips when working with AES and experiences. So here's some of my top tips. You know, working with experiences, especially like Workspace and even that new portal experience, try to stick out of the box for your first iterations of your experience. This is going to be new for a lot of users, and there's a lot of power behind it and a lot of customization that you can do. And while custom components are an option, they will require development overhead and will need to be supported by a developer and won't receive any updates from ServiceNow. So try and see if an out-of-the-box component will work for your needs before making things a little too complex. And then as your experience matures and your process around development for your experience matures, then go ahead and work in those custom components. My next one is to spin up a PDI or a sandbox and go ahead and start playing around. I recommend installing the CSM configurable workspace and some of the template applications I mentioned, just to see how ServiceNow implemented their experiences and to get ideas and understand how things such as events and data resources work. The last thing is, as you work through your pages, there's going to be multiple layers of components like I showed you. Get in the habit of just naming them so you can look at your layers right away and detect what you need, rather than having like data visualization 1 and data visualization 2. You'll know exactly what report that is or whatever you need. It just really helps when your pages get a little bit more complex. And finally, you saw me saving my pages early and often. This just comes from my personal experience working with pages. There have been times where I've clicked out of something or just something happened with my browser and I kind of lost my work. And we're still in the early release of UI Builder, so things can happen. So just go ahead and get in the habit of saving things early and often. So I hope I provided a good overview of what AES is, what it looks like, how to decide when to use it versus other methods. I'm going to now open up the webinar for any questions.
Awesome, Ashley. Thanks for that. It looks like we do have one question that's in here. Are these features only available in Quebec?
So the features I showed you are only available in Quebec as of Quebec patch 1.
Awesome, thanks. A couple more are coming in. Can I migrate existing workspaces from Orlando and Paris to a configurable workspace?
Not that I've seen at this time. I'm not sure if ServiceNow will release this in the future. I know that I've heard them working on things such as porting previous applications over to AES. I haven't heard anything about workspaces yet. So this would be something to take into consideration if you are on Quebec or planning to move to Quebec shortly and you're wanting to develop a workspace. I know we've had some customers at GlideFast that have kind of been presented this scenario, and they went ahead and went with the agent workspace with the understanding that they'll know they'll have to rebuild in the future. So if you do choose to go that route, just document what you've done on the agent workspace and any configurations that you've made so you can easily create stories from them when you're moving over to your configurable workspace.
Awesome. And then talking about AES, someone just asked, is there anything you have found that you cannot do in AES?
That's a good question. So kind of going through AES myself, I have found a few things that that I just can't do in AES. I think for a lot of, use cases, and definitely for a lot of out of the box use cases, it's going to meet most needs. But I have seen if you're working with like more advanced catalog items, or if you're customizing, more complex workspaces and portal experiences, you may need to jump out of AES and even UI Builder sometimes to kind of do more traditional development, such as like looking at the backend code, or there are some variable types that just aren't available for catalog items within AES that are still available within the platform view. So there are going to be a few things that you will come across, but I think for most scenarios, it'll meet most customers' needs.
Awesome. And then coming off that, someone just asked, is it a better version of existing Developer Studio or separate from that?
So my experience with Guided App Creator, I think it's a better version of Guided App Creator. I would say for Studio, I don't think it's better. It's just different. Studio is more of that high code experience where I jump in and start creating all my different layers of my application right away. Personally, for me, I think I'm going to start out creating my apps in AES unless there's some need to create them in Studio. And then when I need to add business rules and more complex scripts, then I'll hop over into Studio and do that.
Great. And then someone said, are these considered custom applications when built on core product functionality? Are additional licenses required to use the apps built in AES?
That's also a good question. So these are scoped apps, just like when you create scoped apps in Studio or Guided App Creator, they are their own scoped applications. Always check with your rep about any kind of licensing questions.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Lots of questions coming in now. Can I create a workspace in UI Builder for incident process because of limitations in existing ITSM agent workspace?
Yeah, you could do that. You could definitely create let's say you create your own workspace experience on the app its own. You can reference those incident tables. I can't speak to any licensing on that, but technically you can reference those incident tables and set up your own workspace to do that. I've done a lot of stuff with like case management where I just look at the case tables and don't touch case management. So you could definitely do that.
Great. Okay, we'll do 2 more questions. Are we able to use custom workspaces on out-of-box delivered functionality like project management?
So right now, what I've seen is you can only use custom workspaces on apps within AES. I've heard some rumors about ServiceNow allowing you to, port things over or convert them over into AES. So that I don't know right now. That would be definitely something to kind of be on the lookout for with the Rome release, or even, checking with your account rep.
Awesome. And then last question we have here, are there materials or training that you recommend?
Definitely. So ServiceNow has embedded a lot of great content right within AES in that interface. There's a lot of good stuff on the developer site. I know that the ServiceNow developer program has been doing blogs and live coding happy hours where they're diving into this stuff. So there's just a lot of stuff out there. I definitely recommend checking them out. It's the things that I checked out when I was learning this myself.
All right, well, I think that's all the time we have for questions today. Thanks so much, Ashley, for answering all of those. And I'd just like to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. We hope you enjoyed the session. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to Ashley at ashley.snyder@glidefast.com. Also, you can check out her personal blog that she has at ashleysn.com. Thanks to everyone, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.